got to make it work with who shows up. And so we often have this grass is greener mentality. It's like, oh, if we could just find that next CSR or that next service tech, or and the truth is, Superman is not coming. Superman ain't coming. So what are we going to do as a company? What are we going to do as an industry? Welcome to the Blue Collar Bros Podcast, a home service podcast brought to you by your hosts, the Yarbrough Brothers. We're here just to journey along in business growth, family business, and see how we can make this thing work. How we doing, guys?
Doing great.
Great.
Not too shabby?
Got coffee, got food. Tucker brought the breakfast this morning, so I'm pretty...
Yeah. Hey, anytime you can get a breakfast sandwich, that's where it's at.
You know, I really like it. First episode jumping in. We're not even jumping into why we're here or what we're doing. We're jumping into breakfast sandwiches. But before we jump into breakfast sandwiches... Let's dive a little bit deeper into what was our motivation on starting a podcast. You know, obviously, everybody with a microphone, a producer such as ours, our marketing director, and the ability to record a little bit of audio has decided that they need to start a podcast. So why add to the noise? What are your thoughts?
I mean, I think something. At least this is obviously my own perspective, but I think within the home service industry, there's a lot of family businesses, but very few family businesses that have siblings working in close conjunction with one another. And so I think it's a unique opportunity to just kind of bring value to the space as far as one, just the home industry goes, but two, as a family and three brothers that really want to bring value to the space. I think that's something that this is our attempt to bring value to the table. And so I at least for me, I saw it as a really unique opportunity. So,
yeah, I think whenever we all got here and started working for Dad, we would have what Bryce would call the 4 o'clock wind up. And the podcast really feels just like an extension of that. Whereas all the conversations that we always have kind of towards the end of the day, or just kind of sporadically about business, about kind of our processes and how we can improve as a company and how we can improve to help our employees and help our customers better. This is just an extension of that in hopes to bring value to other companies within the trade space and within business. And so it just feels like the natural thing to do. And I feel like it's kind of the altruistic thing for us to do. It's like we feel like the things that we have to talk about and just our experience and the experience and the leadership that's been poured into us, we feel like we have the relationship and camaraderie and conversations to be able to share that with a larger audience than just ourselves. So,
you know, I think too, it's also, I want to point out, I think Colby may have just renamed the whole podcast of the 4 o'clock wind up, but regardless,
it's a good name too.
I think it's one of those things where every time, you know, we've been so blessed with, you know, the Service Nation Alliance and, you know, John and Vicky LaPlante, just our coaches, the people who've poured into us. At every turn, we've been told that what we have going here at Yarbrough and Sons is not a normal work atmosphere for a family business, especially one of scale, that has 54, 55 employees now and running around. You know, it's a big team. You got to fix a lot of stuff to keep everybody busy. And so along the way with Service Nation telling us, hey, you guys, you know, what y'all have going is unique. What you have is not normal for the space. It kind of became one of those things where the more we were confronted with it, we had to do something. It was so, you know, we're good at, if we're not good at anything, we're halfway decent at talking and sharing a vision. And I think that's what it comes down to, is this, like Colby said, is an extension of sharing the vision, not just for Yarbrough and Sons, because I think that would be a very self-centered approach to it. But our passion is, you know, we have all pretty much said, we don't give a rip about air conditioning or plumbing, you know, but it's the people. We care about our team and the people of the blue collar industry. And so with an opportunity to share what a healthy work culture looks like, what a healthy work culture can look like, how you can grow your business. And again, we're not the biggest, you know, we're a $10 million company. We're 54 employees. We're bigger than most, but smaller than a lot. And one of the goals that we have is to grow and become a beacon, a place for blue collar individuals to find success and find a life that, you know, maybe they wouldn't have had otherwise within the industry.
Yeah. And our kind of dream is to open this up for a larger community to ask questions, and for us to ask questions, and kind of share across the community like the ideas. And so, because if good ideas aren't shared, then they're not going to do any good. And so
we have a really good R&D department, which is rob and duplicate.
Yes.
Find someone doing it well, rob it, duplicate it.
And tell your buddy.
Solomon tells us in Ecclesiastes, there's nothing new under the sun, so it doesn't matter anyway. So if you find something that
everyone just reuses the same ideas, just with different wrapping.
It's just how well you can market it. That's all it is. How well can you talk about the thing? And so, this isn't a podcast or an attempt to a position of like we made it. Even
no.
We are still very much on the path towards growth, towards trying to push into our goal. I'm 27, Will's 33, Colby's 31, and so we've got a long runway ahead of us within the trades space, and so it's start making an impact now with what we have. We've always said, we coined it a couple years ago that Dad's ceiling is our floor. And so it's that parable of the talents, to whom much is given, much is expected.
Yeah. I think too, everyone stands on the shoulders of people that have gone before them, and so it's that, it's funny. Bryce and I were talking yesterday, just that concept of stewardship, and we've been handed the opportunity to something really unique and really special, and so wanting to be good stewards of that. Not only just for the sake of like what Dad built, but also for the sake of the 52 other families that this business supports. And so it's not just 52 individuals, but 52 families, and that's a lot of people.
You do the math.
Yeah.
It's over 170 people that we are directly impacting their daily life.
Yeah, and I mean, in I think our Christian faith like informs this sort of this mentality, which is I think is a really good thing, but it makes us treat this opportunity with there's a lot of gravity to this, but within that gravity you can bring your own levity to it. So it's not like we walk around just like, oh my gosh, there's so much at stake, all the time, but we have fun, and we have fun, and we do a lot to help our team to have as much fun as possible. But I think it's standing on the shoulders of those who have come before us, of what Dad's built, and then capitalizing on that so that we can go farther than he ever could. And it helps too that there's three of us, so the fact that this relationship stays strong. And I think we'll get into that in the podcast a little bit further, but I think that's another important aspect of why this works as well as it does.
And it's so key too. It's because we're not having to reinvent the wheel. We don't have to build the first chariot. We've got to find out how to build the internal combustion engine. So yes, there's steps that have to be taken, and the business is going to look different as we grow. And I mean, shoot, it already looks different than when we started. I mean, when all of us came on, we were a $4 million company, $4.5 million company, with just over 30 team members. And so in less than 4 years, we've doubled the size of the company. We've added another half of our team. We've more than doubled our square footage with our new warehouse. We've added a whole nother trade. And so the business looks different. And that's what building the internal combustion engine looks like. But it's not building the wheel. We don't have to start over at square one. And so that's kind of that kicker piece for us of, okay, Dad's laid that foundation. He shared the path. So we need to start talking about it, because there's success to be had in the trades. And so with that, talking about just a little bit of background for the home service industry, I assume most of our audience, our potential gang that will come along the journey with us, is going to be home service based. But for those who aren't, we had the opportunity to go to Service World Expo, which is the largest gathering of home service contractors in the world, and speak a little bit on recruiting and retention within the space. And just wanted to share some numbers that we were kind of astonished with when we were doing our presentation, which is, so right now, by 2035, we are pacing with the current retirement and current job entrance rates within the trades. We're pacing for, by 2030, to have 2 jobs per person working in the trades. And that is from the U.S. jobs report. And then if you look at U.S. Census report, they talk about the fact that within the hard skilled trades, that won't just be 2 jobs per person, in the trades that'll be 2 jobs per person plus projected entrance. So really you're going to be close to somewhere in like that 2.7 or 3 range. And the industry is growing at a 35% rate over that same term. So we're outpacing the growth of the economy within the trades without the new entrance of people. And so one of the things that we want to do, and it's really near and dear to our hearts because all of us grew up the son of a tradesman, was, we've always taken it pretty personal how tradespeople are presented within our media today. For the last 40
and in
years.
Education.
Yeah, and in education.
Yeah. That's a whole other whole other deal.
Yeah, it's a whole different topic. get me fired up, man. That's one way to do it.
Press the button.
Yeah. And so within the media, the tradesperson is always the heavy set guy with the gangly looking mullet.
Yeah, plumber's crack.
Yeah, got plumber's crack. You got a big beer gut, and you're carrying a toolbox that doesn't look like it has more than 6 Allen wrenches in.
I think I follow him on Instagram.
I think we follow several of them on Instagram. And so it's one of those deals of presenting pathways to success, and that's one of the things that we try to model within our company is modeling multiple pathways to success.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Something too, I was thinking about this the other day, as it relates to this topic, but I think the traditional pathway to success from a student coming out of high school is this concept of, okay, all right, I got to go to a 4-year university, get a degree, and get a job. And how that is, you just look at the amount of student loan debt, and just how it's not working well. You know what I mean? And so offering an alternative to a lot of people, to a lot of students that are graduating high school with the potential to enter the workforce, or they're wanting to extend their education, and not just being like a trades business, but also being a place where someone can begin a career that can propel them forward to establish their family and reach their goals. I think that's a bit, and not being a ridiculous amount of debt.
Yeah.
At the end of it. Think about generational virtues of people that, and I've talked about this. We've talked about this before with other contractors and at Service Nation, which is the pitch to get younger people in the trades is not, this is hard work and you should do it because it's hard work. Terrible slogan. Then slogan needs to change. If the sales pitch is not working, we need to change the sales pitch. So.
Hey, are you signing up to eat a piece of the shit sandwich? No, we're not. No, we're not.
And this is coming from a residential salesman.
So you got to change. You got to change how you communicate to the younger generation to get people to join your team. And so, one of the things that I'll tell people all the time is how do I get in the trades? What's good about I was like, well, trades work is hard. Yes. However, if you have a heart for helping people and you have a heart for solving problems that other people can't, and providing phenomenal service and customer service, then the trades is for you.
Yeah, you can make a home here. Yeah, I think it's surmised. So Teddy Roosevelt had a quote where he's talking about work, and he said, "Far and away, the best prize that life has to offer is the opportunity to work hard at work worth doing."
Yeah,
and the trades is work worth doing. We are America's life support system. Most of the South wouldn't be inhabitable without central air. None of the world would be as densely populatable as it is without plumbing. And so with that, being said, like Colby said, it's the heart of service, the opportunity to work hard at work worth doing. And again, it is hard. And sometimes you take a bite of that sandwich and you just got to grit your teeth and move through it. But that's with every job. Mm-hmm. That's the kicker is there isn't a single job out there that is just all sunshine and rainbows. Everyone has to eat a little bit of the sandwich at a time. They all have to take their bite and move forward. And so when it comes to this ideation and this almost idolization of the job that we're going to get, for that high school student, the amount of work required to the outcome desired in their head versus reality is a very different equation than I think any of us are actually comfortable talking about. Because why would college, talk about it? They won't, because you got to sign somebody up to go into $100,000 worth of debt and sell them a degree that's not going to do you anything. I almost took shots at different degrees, but I was like, I'm just going to refrain a little bit.
I think it's also worth saying for the fact that all of us have college degrees.
From a liberal arts
institution. So I think it's.
I just want it to be noted that Tucker looked directly at me when he said, "I don't want to take shots at certain degrees." So.
I mean, you know how I feel about
Bryce. I mean, you and I mean, Bryce has a more applicable degree than I think. I would need to pursue higher education if I continued with that.
And if we're all being honest, I technically have to take one more course.
Yeah. So we got a degenerate, we got an anthropologist, and we got a journalist. I got the business degree, guys. Here we go.
I wanted to
not a degenerate,
but I
didn't mean that.
Yeah. But it's an in-family critique, right? Because we've all been there. Like we all went to university.
Well, the outcomes.
Yeah, exactly.
And speaking from so I went through the School of Business, have a degree in management and finance, and so talk about outcomes is so whenever I was leaving college, my plan was to come back here and work. Yeah, I'd made that decision about my the second semester freshman year, end of that second semester. Yeah. And so when I decided to come work at Yarbrough's, work at the old heat and air shop, I had most of my professors, they never really said anything, but it was all okay, you're going to the trades. Got it. Cool. And most of my peers went and did something else. They went and worked for a bank or went and worked for some large company. And, not only was I able to make more running service whenever I came out of college, but I also had a better just work-life balance than a lot of them did, because the banking world is a toxic one. The corporate world a lot of times is a toxic one. Yeah. And so outcomes are not equal. And so it's that realization. It's all right, it's an in-house critique, because we spent our time in college and, outside of the things that I do on the day-to-day, our actual education wasn't and doesn't play a super big role in the functionality of our job.
Yeah. Well, I think it's the distinction between what is and we've talked about this before. So, but I think it also, again, is worth saying is what is the purpose of college? Is it to get a job or to get an education? And so I think we conflate those two things. It's I'm going to college so that I can get a job. When in reality, college is there to, unless you're going for a super specific thing like you were, Tucker, going to business. But I think we got really, really good educations, but there wasn't we didn't come out of college with a skill. Does that make sense? And I think whenever people are looking to go to college and get a degree or go to a trade school, I think having that, knowing what you're going into with a clear mind, it's I'm going to get a really good education here, but I'm going to have to develop, but also I need to develop a skill so that I'm marketable after college, or I'm going to trade school to get a trade, to get a skill, but also you need to continue pursuing education just for your own sake. You know what I mean? So you need both.
The stat of the average American reads less than a book a year.
Yeah.
Not a great one.
That's not a great stat.
But it's also the view of it. And again, you take it with a grain of salt, but it's the view of it. You have to look at it from how it's being pitched to these students. Mm-hmm. And to the students, college a lot of times is being pitched as, here's this magical box, and as soon as you go through this magical box, you're going to get a key, and this key is going to get you the job that you desire. And because nothing has been just crazy hard up to that point, there's hard situations, there's hard education, things like that. But if you are going to college and have an opportunity to do so, you're in a very privileged position. And so the view of I'm going to go land this job, no, that offers you the opportunity to now go bust your hump and work hard, but you have the foundation. You have the language model that the rest of the world uses for the thing that you're going to get studied in.
Right.
And so whereas trade school, you're going in for it's a lot I made the comparison at Service World. It's a lot like the trades and the military have something in common, and that is we got to make it work with who shows up. Because if the military got to go pick the best athlete, the best at this, the best at that, we wouldn't have an Olympic team. We would have the most athletic fighting force on earth, but we wouldn't have an Olympic team. We wouldn't have the NFL. We wouldn't have those things, because that's the way that it works. Is there's some choice involved. And so trades and the military share that in common of you got to make it work with who shows up. And so we often have this grass is greener mentality. It's like, oh, if we could just find that next CSR or that next service tech or and the truth is Superman is not coming. Superman ain't coming. So what are we going to do as a company? What are we going to do as an industry? You know, that's more of the call of the Blue Collar Broughs podcast is what are we going to do as an industry to right this ship? Because as 3, 4, 30-something-year-olds, young 30s, there's a lot of room left in this industry in our lifetime. And the outlook right now is pretty bleak as far as job entrance. And so it's trying to change the narrative, change the direction, and show there is many pathways to success within the trades. You've just got to find the right spot.
Yeah. Something too. So I'm going to kind of like dabble in a little bit of like my entrance stuff, but I'm going to bring it back to this topic. So just bear with me on my little roundabout rabbit trail. But so like after I left college, I just for the sake of whoever's listening or watching, you know, my wife and I, we moved overseas for 2 years, and we were over there, and so, but I taught English, and I also taught a high school writing class and an adult like English, basically a conversational English class. And so I think education play, and my wife is also an educator by trade, and like that was her college education, was going to school to teach. But education played a big role in my life at that point. And we can get into like the super finite details of how I came back here. But essentially, long story short, after my 2-year contract was up, came back here, started working here. But a company that does this really well that I admire a lot is McWilliams & Sons. And just talking with some of their leadership and how they invest in the education of the people that onboard with them, that go to work for them. I think that's a really good metric for how trades companies or home service companies, as we position ourselves in the future, not just being, hey, we can fix the thing, but it's, hey, let's if you partner with our company, we're going to invest in you as a person and invest in your education, not just in the trade space, but just in general. I mean, I think a lot of times some of these guys do, you know, I'm speaking specifically about McWilliams & Sons, but I know that they do like budget classes and all this kind of stuff. And that's one aspect of things where they're investing in the education of their team. And I think as we move forward as an industry, I think that is a great model for how we as an industry can add value, not just to the home service space, but just the educational space as well.
And you look at it too, it's no longer enough to just simply be in business. Yeah. It's no longer enough because the skill gap, not even just the trades, HVAC, plumbing, electrical, like not even just the trades, but the skilled labor gap, the tinkerers of the world are in higher demand than they've ever been. And so they can go work for anyone. You know, I mean, you're talking all of the auto manufacturers, our Lennoxes and American Standards and Train and Carrier, all those. But they can also go like the U.S. Armed Services, like all of those companies are looking for individuals who are willing to work with their hands, looking for opportunities to move. And the sad reality is within the trades, a lot of times, is we cap out people's potential because we aren't there yet as a company, or we're not comfortable with the potential of expanding beyond what we thought was possible. And so we kill those ideas or kill that ambition. And then it leads to, well, I'm going to go start my own company. It leads to the stat that 99% of all trades-based companies never break $1 million in total revenue. They never have more than 5 employees. And so you're always talking about solopreneurs a lot of times, as opposed to what would make the biggest difference within the industry is companies being ran well and people able to make a career at that place and build companies that are sizable and big enough to sway industry interests.
Yeah. Not just for the owners.
Yeah, no. Yeah. That
for
success is shared. Yeah. And so that's the path and the outlook is they can work anywhere. And so it's not enough to be in business. It's not enough to say we do HVAC and plumbing. We have to invest. We have to push our people forward in a way that is not just beneficial to the company, but is personally beneficial, encouraging them to take their vacations, encouraging them to do the thing like budgeting, like starting a family, like buying that house. and pushing people forward.
Yeah, and we talk about having our finger on the pulse of your company, and like really learning what are the needs of your people. What are the things that they're going through specifically that you may have resources to help them with? And so, and I think one of the things, it kind of going back to what Vic Williams and Sons is, having the pulse was like, for me in education, like there's like didn't really get taught budgeting, how taxes work.
Yeah.
What does financing look like? How in the world do I buy a house? How in the world do I build equity? How in the world do I build wealth for me and my family?
Who's this FICA guy, and why is he taking all my money?
Right. Yeah.
That was a conversation yesterday.
So having your finger on the pulse, whatever that pain point that your technician or your employee is going through, and figuring out ways to meet the needs of your people, for us is one of the most crucial parts of how we operate. And so
I think it's also something that we've shifted over the last probably and not even that it wasn't this way before, but we've made a more concerted effort of it over the last 2 or 3 years, is say yes a lot quicker. Don't hem and haw. When somebody comes and asks you for something, it doesn't matter. When somebody comes and asks you for something, don't hem and haw over it. Don't drag somebody on. Pretty much right off the bat, you know what's going on. You know where you're at. And obviously, if it's not something outlandish, let's try to make it work. Let's say yes. It can be a yes but or a yes and, but it needs to be a path forward, or else we kill it on arrival. It's DOA.
Right.
And so we shoot down things that could potentially push the company forward in ways that we can't imagine. And if we're going to grow and achieve, not just for ourselves, I can't stress that enough, not just for ourselves, but achieve for our team the success that we desire for our team, we can't be in control of everything that goes on. Dad can't sit there. Darren Yarbrough cannot sit there and read every service invoice. Yeah, no. That was like I remember that was one of the first conversations that he and I had as far as operations are concerned back in 2017 when we were trying to make that transitional growth. Dad was still signing off signature on every ticket that he was reading. And that led to a lot of customers calling him, being like, well, Darren, I saw that this thing was on X, Y, or Z. And what are your thoughts about this? And how do we, when should I think about replacing it? And, and not that Dad isn't happy to have those conversations. He is. I mean, Dad lives to talk to customers.
Yeah.
But what it did do is, as we were growing, it led to infinitely more conversations, because now everyone felt like they knew Darren Yarbrough. They felt like they had the in. He saw their ticket, he approved it, so he's the one that they should talk to. And so it's relinquishing that control and trusting that your team is going to take care of it. Now it's if Dad knows somebody's name, typically it's not for a great reason. It's like, oh, we have somebody has boiled up to the surface. We've made mistakes. Yeah. And now the pipers come to collect payment.
Yeah. I think that's a really good like segue point, not to completely go away from that topic, but I think whenever you're saying like make your default be, err on the side of yes, it can be yes and yes, but I think it's erring on the side of generosity and being able and willing and a desire of ours to back our team, no matter what happens. I think something that Dad's done really well, and I personally have experienced this, but if we make a mistake, but that mistake was made with good intentions and we made our decision on purpose, like being able to back that decision, be like, okay, all right, well, we learned not to do that thing again, and
we paid our stupid
tax, and let's move on.
Yeah. Well, and Colby coined it best, I think, right before we went to Service World. I'm putting you on the spot a little bit. Do you remember what you said?
Give me more context.
About mistakes, about how mom and dad just growing up and frame mistakes.
Just kind of frame like employees like mistakes are not personal flaws. Like mistakes are not personality issues. They're just mistakes. I'm not sure if that's exactly how I said it, but it's pretty close.
I'll give you an 88.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah.
88 is passing. So that's good.
I'll keep talking to make it like a 92. Anyways, mistakes are not character flaws.
That was it. Right
That was it. There, 100%.
There it goes. There it is.
Mistakes are not character flaws.
I wasn't there for that one, so that's great.
Thank
I'm
you.
hearing
Yeah,
this for the
hey,
first
I
time.
appreciate that. Mistakes are not character flaws, and mistakes are opportunities to learn education. Most of the time, it's cheaper than college. Whenever you do make a mistake, and then mistakes are also opportunities to coach. And so, if your team members come to you and if we treat them like it's a character flaw that they don't do the thing that you ask them to do, then why in the world would they stay with you?
Yeah.
And so if we treat mistakes like just as they are mistakes and learning opportunities, the approach to building a safe workplace culture for your team and for your people, and for us, like our mistakes were never character flaws; they're just learning and
because we're perfect.
Yeah, because we're
Exactly.
Thanks, Mom. But like it just learning opportunities. And so whenever your team members, one of us come to you with mistakes, it's not a character flaw. It's not because you're
Also,
a terrible
too,
person.
something we've had in our onboarding video for quite some time, and it is something that Dad said, and it was like in passing, which was, if you mess up, fess up, and if you do so quickly, people are pretty forgiving.
Oh, yeah.
and that's on all
Yeah.
sides. That's from a tech to a customer. That's on a CSR to a manager. That's on anywhere in the chain. When you mess up, fess up. I mean. Shoot, I made a bad call early this year of trying to transition us to a different software, and turns out it didn't work. And so, like Will said, we paid our stupid tax to the tune of $15,000-ish. Transitioned back to our old software, and I got to stand in front of the team and say I screwed up. I made a mistake.
Yeah.
And
I didn't know.
and smile through it and say I had the best of intentions, but. Turns out I was wrong.
Yeah, and I think a big we kind of segue into kind of our operations of transparency of like whenever you don't treat mistakes like character flaws, whenever you yourself as an owner operator come before your team and say, hey, I messed up on something and I want to apologize, because you've treated them with respect, they're going to treat you with that same respect. And so the response from our team was, I think that was probably a cool thing for me to see whenever Tucker basically got up in front of the team. He's like, hey, we made a mistake. We thought the software would do what we wanted to do, but it did not. We're transitioning back to the software that we were breaking up with. And anyways, the team, what happened was they rallied around Tucker and they dove into the old software that we were using, that we didn't necessarily know how to use correctly, and we're like, let's figure this out together. And so that was fun.
I'm willing to admit that the original software definitely was an us problem.
But yeah, so that was the era of transparency, and the reciprocation from your team to show you the same respect that you show them on a weekly basis was awesome. Was really cool.
Just to go off that a little bit, I think you're highlighting something really important too. But as leaders, how important it is to have humility in a situation, and and not just completely just lose it. You know what I mean? But having control of your own emotions and your own the sense of your world, and that maybe is a bad way to phrase that, but I think too, just to illustrate that point, you came before the team. It takes some level of humility to say, hey guys, I made a mistake. But here's the path forward. Here's what we're going to do. You didn't just blow up and blame everyone else under the sun, but just being honest. That's something too that I remember. Yeah. So one of, Colby and Tucker and, everyone who knows me knows this about me, I guess, but I really enjoy telling stories to illustrate a point. But something that happened to me 2 years ago. I know me. No, never. But something that happened to me that I think this is this is just kind of who Dad is and how he's instilled this sort of mentality within us is he was teaching me how to build a house pad. So I was building our house pad, and we had a bobcat. And so the way I know Colby's I know this story. So the way you got to get this Bobcat back on this trailer is you've got to back it up backwards, right? So, but it's a gooseneck trailer. So the gooseneck, the hitch kind of fits on top of the ball with inside the truck, right? But you've got to lock it. That's a really important step. You have to lock it. And so anyway, I put it on there. I thought I locked it. Now you can see where this is going. So I backed the Bobcat, this thing that weighs thousands of pounds, onto this trailer on the back, and it's attached to Dad's truck, not mine. Dad's truck. That's a really important point.
It was a F-250 Platinum, I think.
Yeah, it's the truck I'm driving now. Now that I think about that, there might be a reason why I got that. So anyway, he got a new one.
Will's dealing with the actions of, look at that. As if it's not the actions of my own.
Yeah.
Or the consequences of my own actions.
But long story short, I backed this Bobcat up, and the entire gooseneck slips off the ball, and it just completely just piles through Dad's toolbox and completely just caves in the back of the bed of his truck. Yeah. I mean, it was bad.
Right.
And so I'm sitting in this Bobcat while this is happening, and just my face, I mean, color just drains from my face. And I look over at Dad, and he's not losing it. He's not he's super calm. And he first thing he goes, he's like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "I'm good." And I was like, "I am so sorry. I'll pay for it. I'll do it." And he says, "Hey," he said, "don't worry about it. What did we learn today?" I learned to lock that hitch on. I will never forget to lock that hitch on the back of a gooseneck. But
yeah.
I think it illustrates the point. It happened to his truck, and I did it.
Yeah.
And so, but
and I watched,
and I watched.
Had every right.
Yeah. Had every right to be upset. That's an expensive fix. We had to buy a whole new bed and a new toolbox new toolbox. But the fact that kind of grace that I experienced that one day, he extends that to our team as well. And so I think as us, as the second generation coming in,
right.
that sort of mentality, that sort of grace and humility and whatever else you want to attach to that, I think extends out, and we desire to show that same grace, that same humility to our team. Yeah. And I think that's a unique thing. And I think that's a challenge to leaders in this space, that if you're leading out in this space, that people are watching you and responding to how you respond to stressful situations. I think that's a really important point.
I'm going to add to that story too. So I was there when that happened. I was in the bed of that pickup at one point, and I would just spiral. I was like, that could have been me. But just thinking through the process of, and I think this is something that a lot of in leadership we don't think about, was I got to see how Dad responded to Will in that circumstance. And then now I learn how to lead in a similar way. Now, if you flip the coin, if Dad would have responded differently, then yes, the response to Will would have been way different. And the leadership mentality between the interaction, the transaction between Will and Dad would have been different. But the transaction between my experience and watching that kind of transpire was I would have learned how to respond when something is done. When something dumb happens,
when a
mistake happens, I would have been like, "Oh, well, that's how you respond to your employees. You yell at them, or you treat them terrible." Yeah, and so
would have been forced a different action.
Yeah, absolutely. And so for me to kind of witness that situation where because we've all been in situations like that where we've done something stupid, where we've all we've made mistakes.
Hey, I just want to point out there are many stories through our entire upbringing where y'all two do something harebrained, and I am nowhere to be found. I don't know where. I guess I was in college, when you guys rode the dryers. In the dryers, I was taking a nap.
Yeah, you were.
There's many stories through our upbringing where it's Will and Colby. There's a little bit of an age gap. So I'm 4 years younger than Colby, 6 years younger than Will. So there's a little bit of an age gap there, but it's I always just hear the secondary side of it, and I learn by proxy of just all right, just lock the hitch, because I don't want to have to buy a bed.
I don't want to have to do that.
Because now in my position at the company, I cut most of the checks. And so I don't want to have to do that. I already did mine. Mine was our software. I already cut my tool bed. My tool bed was more expensive than Will's.
It was. It was. That is true.
Oh, gosh. Yeah.
But I do. I think there's many paths forward. But I do. I want to circle all the way back around here. And we'll start off with Will, because he's kind of already given a little bit of a glimpse into it. So the Blue Collar Bros podcast, one, play on our last name, Yarbrough, drop the UGH, and you're there.
There you go.
We are the brothers. But also, like, what was our path to the blue collar industry? What did that look like? So we're gonna give like the 5-minute rendition for each of us to jump into it and kind of share a little bit about our path to the trades. And we'll share kind of the I guess the reverse psychology bit from mom and dad, just the upbringing.
Yeah.
And then we'll go with Colby, and then I'll round it out. But yeah, so we'll jump into it. Tell us how you ended up in the blue collar industry at Yarbrough's, doing your thing. Man of many hats throughout the years.
Yeah. I think my roles have changed about like once a year. This is about what I'm averaging. Yeah. So I think it's also, and I feel like I've said it this way, I think it's worth saying, but because I'm 6 years older than Tucker and I'm 2 years older than Colby, I was at a different, mom and dad, as far as the Yarbrough's heating and air, was at a different stage when I was like entering my teen years. So I got a little bit of a different talk. But I remember being with dad in a truck, and it was a hard day. It was hot, and I honestly, I don't remember what the job was or what we were doing. I just remember it being hard, and he was tired. Yeah. You know, and he was driving, and he goes, "Will, you know, if you can do anything else, go get a degree and go do something else." Like he said, you know, you can use your mind a lot longer than you can use your body. You know, and dad was probably, I don't know, he's probably 40 something at the time. You know, and he was kind of the one man show. I mean, he was selling it. He was doing the service calls. He was doing some of the installs. He was building houses on the side at night. Something mom and dad did that, you know, we moved every 2 years, and mom and dad built the houses themselves. They GC'd it, and dad did a lot of the mechanical work himself. So I kind of had that sort of mentality, even like leaving high school and college was I wasn't gonna come into the trades. I was gonna go try to do something else. You know, and I worked in at Yarbrough's for a while. Even in college and high school, I scrapped and I did install. I never really did service, which is different from you guys, because y'all did service. I did commercial install. But when I went to college, I got a degree in anthropology, which is super.
What is anthropology?
Yeah, exactly. The study of people and cultures is what that is.
Thank you.
Yeah, there you go. It played into the fact that I moved overseas for 2 years, so that played into that. But so I went to college, and my wife and I, we moved overseas for 2 years, and it was within that context of living overseas that you know, I taught English, and I just really I had a lot of time to kind of think about kind of what I wanted to do and what life wanted to look like post that, and you know, and I think looking at what mom and dad had done, you know, dad and I had a conversation. We was going, "Hey, actually, it's not that bad. Like we can kind of build this thing if you want to, but don't feel like you have to." So I didn't feel any pressure to come back. And so, but seeing the opportunity that getting to work with my family, you know, I feel like my interest into the trades is pretty superficial. It's not like I had like this.
Had we had at that point, had Colby and I, had we decided we were coming back and you knew that?
I did not know that.
Okay, gotcha.
I knew Colby started working here about a year before I came back.
Yeah,
you were still in college.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And so
not even that we had made it back. I'm saying, like, had we made the decision, I can't remember if we had vocalized that to you at that point.
No, not really.
Gotcha.
I don't think.
Not that Colby and I had like a cabal to come
yeah,
back.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think that's unique too, is the fact that like we all came in at different times and in our own way.
Here's the thing: we're really good at if we're not around each other, we just don't talk about our harebrained ideas. And we'll Tucker and I will dive into that a little bit more when we kind of share our story. Yeah. Because mine and Tucker's story is kind of a little bit more intertwined. Kind of. Hilariously.
There's the word.
There we go. Thank you.
We got there.
So yeah, we'll continue. Yeah.
Well, but yeah. So okay. So then after we moved overseas, we came back. We got pregnant with our first daughter.
Before coming back though, you had a conversation with one of your team members.
Oh yeah.
That I want to highlight.
Yeah. Okay.
Super impactful.
Oh man. Okay. So that's all right. To credit I'm going to name him Dr. McCullum and John McLam. Dr. McCullum was my professor over anthropology at college, and then John McLam was my team leader whenever we were overseas. So something that they both said, but John really highlighted it, was I was helping them move, and they moved a lot. My counts for moving, I'm like in the high 20s as far as the amount of times I've moved.
See, the Yarbroughs move boxes.
I have moved. I have moved Will and Megan's bed more than they have moved.
Than they have. Yeah. Thank you for that, by the way. But something he said, we were helping move, and he was just talking about plans afterwards, because I had this 2-year contract. We was coming to an end. He knew that. I knew that. And so he was asking me just what my plans were, and I really didn't kind of know. And something he said was, Will, we need people who are, and I'm a Christian, and so my faith is super important to me, and I take it extremely seriously, in the ways that I want to like carry it out practically. And so, but people who have that sort of conviction, being in the home services space, and that's a really important space, and not any less important than what you were doing, than what I was doing overseas, and it's just a different capacity. And I'm kind of paraphrasing some of the things. It was like a 10-minute conversation or a 20-minute conversation. I'm like summing it up in like 2 sentences, but that's the gist of kind of what he said in the topics of that conversation. And it kind of reframed my focus of kind of like what I thought was possible within this space, and kind of like what mom and dad were doing and how I fit into that. Because I think I always saw myself, I could do that. Like I could go back and work for mom and dad, but I didn't have a good like frame of reference for how that integrated into what I was doing while I was overseas, and kind of what I'd been thinking about while I was in college, and how all of that connected. I had
it's like that quote from C.S. Lewis. It's like the last thing the world, not the last thing, but
yeah,
the world doesn't need another preacher behind the pulpit. The world needs the street sweeper, the Christian street sweeper, to be the best street sweeper possible.
Yes.
And the cobbler, the Christian cobbler, to be the best cobbler possible.
Yeah.
And let that be the outworking of faith.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's too, and something that I've talked to Bryce about, and I won't like belabor this point, but that like within the context of the Bible and everything, like God desires to rule and reign in like in each area of our life. And so not just specific areas, it's not just like, okay, well, I go to church and that's my church life, or this is my home life and this is my work life. Like, no, like, like that sort of your faith integrates into absolutely every facet of who you are and what you do.
It's what we've talked about all the time. It's like going on the family business side of things, people talking about, it's like, separation of family time and business time, your work-life balance. It's like, no, it's BS. Like,
that does not exist. Yeah.
And it's like, because a lot of times the conversations roll naturally. And newsflash, if you need to separate your work and family life, I think you need to have an honest look at how your work life is being handled personally. Right. Of like, how is it impacting you? How is it affecting you? Because like,
I think that's more of a defense mechanism.
If it's impacting you that heavily, like maybe we need to look at like what we're doing, from an interpersonal standpoint, because there is no separation of work life, family life, faith life. There is one cohesive story that is being told at all times.
Yeah.
I think compartmentalizing stuff like that is always like a defense mechanism more than anything else.
I think it creates like dangerous outcomes too.
Well, yeah. Well, then you get situations where your family has no idea what you're like at work. And then you come home and you're bringing something with you, but then you don't talk about it. So then it affects how you interact with your kids, how you interact with your wife, and like all that kind of stuff.
It's with the fact we watch mom and dad do it our whole life. It was like we were going from the heat and air shop to building our humpteenth jillionth home that we're going to move into. It's like there was no transition. It was we're the same at all times. So Colby, your path forward to the trades. What did that look like? What's the journey for the communications wizard?
Oh gosh,
communications wizard. I like that.
So whenever I decided to come back, it was really out of it was from a place of. I'll give a little bit of context. So I went to college and I was a music major for 2 semesters. And I'll keep that side of it short. Long story short, I'm not classically trained. I studied music under a gentleman by the name of Joe Settlemeyer, who taught me how to hear music. And I don't know I can read sheet music, but it did not do me any favors whenever I got into more of a classical setting. And so I was not welcomed into the music community very much as a music degree. And so I was like, well, if this is what the rest of my college career is going to look like, this is terrible. I will go be a fireman. Like I will step out. I'll go work for Dad. I'll do whatever.
Both of our uncles are firemen. Actually, all three. If you want to honorable mention Leroy, who's been
that is true.
All three of our uncles,
the Magic Man,
have been firemen, and so it's a very near and dear to our heart industry.
Yarbrough and Sons was started from Dad started it, and he needed help doing installs, and so he would get Leroy.
Employees number 2 and 3 were firemen.
Yes. And so
mostly because they're part-time availability.
Yes. And so anyway, so that was kind of I would be considered the tinker. Like I work with my hands. I'm very I could do just any kind of technical skill, whether it's woodworking, whether it's playing guitar, whether it's working on air conditioners. I'm a tinkerer. That's what I do. And so anyways, so my college career, first 2 semesters, not great. Mom and Dad were like, hey, I recognize you want to get out, but like, we've got you. Like, find something else within the college space where you can learn something that you feel like would be valuable for you to learn. And so I stepped into strategic communications. Fantastic. And so it was really
thus
good.
the
communication wizard. So anyways, and the class that I'm missing is just like algebra. So I took all my communication classes.
Just missing some maths.
It's math.
Math is math.
Counting money was a lot more fun, and I wanted to buy a ring for my wife. So that's anyways.
It's all the algebra you need.
Boo, terrible. Anyways, so it was probably around. So I actually started playing music with some guys outside of the church setting, and in kind of in my head, and this was before Tucker and I really had a conversation. I was like, so my junior year started playing shows, started playing music, and I was like, you know what? If I go into a corporate office or I go work for a bank, if I do anything outside of working for family, I might not have the same freedoms that I would have had I start working for Mom and Dad, because my parents were super, super supportive. Like and to this day, still supportive. I was able to go help lead a worship camp down in Mobile, Alabama this summer, which was good for my heart, and which was fantastic. And I appreciate.
And if you know anything about selling air conditioners, the worst time.
Yes. Yeah. Anyways, it was good.
Colby's still pacing for a record year.
Yes. Yeah. And so anyway, so I transitioned out of So around the church, I was like, I'm gonna work for family, because I'll have that flexibility. I don't mind working with my hands. I love helping people. I'm pretty technically skilled, so let's get that. Let's do that. And then Tucker and I, around the same time that I decided to come work for Mom and Dad, Tucker, and this is kind of where our story is a little bit more intertwined, where we had some short conversations, and we're like, we're both gonna go back and work. We kind of figured out what our plan was, and so which was kind of cool. So like my senior year, I started working part time. I set my college up where I was my classes up where I was taking Monday, Wednesday, Friday classes, and then I'd come home and drive 45 minutes to do whatever Dad wanted me to do. And so
was I overseas at this point?
You were,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was. Yeah. That would have been my freshman year of college.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And,
all right.
And so that transitions pretty easily into work. I picked up at which was so my freshman year of college. Again, we grew up, Mom and Dad telling us, go do something else. There's got to be an easier way to make a living, because the trades are hard.
Yep.
And don't want to just glaze over that at all. Because Mom and Dad built something like that is now very substantial, and the effort put into it, we will never have a full grasp of that.
Yeah, no.
But grew up, Mom and Dad telling us, go do something else. There's got to be an easier way to make a living. We just want you to be productive members of society. That was the floor.
That was a conversation.
That was a constant phrase that they used.
Yeah. Yes. That was just the baseline.
That was the conversation that Tucker I think we all got, but that was one that I remember specifically that Dad would say. He's like, I don't care what you do. I just want you to be a productive member of society.
Yep.
And I was like, all right, cool.
I got that same talk.
Yeah.
I got that same
talk. So going into school, I guess zoom out a little bit. Through high school, I played every sport under the sun, but I was also an injury-ridden individual. Surgeries on shoulders and knees, and lots of time spent in physical therapy and rehab. And so through that, again, just my faith in outworking, seeing the ability to build a body back up through physical therapy, as well as somebody's mental state through physical therapy, was very enticing. And so I thought, all right, I'm going to go try to become a physical therapist.
Yeah.
And so senior year of high school, I took concurrent classes, got a lot of my math done. And thankfully I got a lot of my math done, because that is what ended up changing my my direction freshman year of college, which was got into college. OBU didn't technically have a school of kinesiology, and so you had to study chemistry. And so studying chemistry, my freshman year, did well in chemistry, did well in the functional sciences, but Calc 3 just pulled a Stone Cold Steve Austin and just dropped the people's elbow on me.
From the top rope.
Yeah. And very quickly, I was like, this is not going to work, because I have to take another calc class after this. And I don't know what the heck these imaginary numbers are and how they fit into my life.
Yeah.
And so really felt like I needed to change course, just because I couldn't cut it in the School of Science. And so I called after about a week and a half or 2 weeks of just thinking and mulling it over, called Dad and said, okay, if I could study anything to help the business grow, what should I study? And Dad, without missing a beat, said mechanical engineering. And I said, that requires Calc 4 as well. So what else could I study? Because the reason I'm changing majors,
Second option, please.
because of this math. And so he said, probably something to do with business, management, finance, or anything in that vein, accounting. And so went to my who ended up being my advisor, Dr. Rudebach. We still do all of his air conditioning. Love that man to death. And just had a conversation with him of, what I wanted to do, that I wanted to go back, work for the family heat and air shop and try to grow it and see what we could make happen. That I always poke tongue in cheek wise that I only like about 30 people on the planet. And not really. Now that number's up to 52. But I like my circle small. So the number of people I like to work around is a pretty limited number. And so I enjoy working with family. And so the opportunity to come back and do that was, something I had to jump at, because the only thing that kept coming back to me while I was in college was the parable of the talents.
Right.
And again, none of us had a conversation that we were coming back at this point.
No.
And so the thought in my head was, how, and again, Mom and Dad never put this on us, so it's like reverse psychology to the nth degree. But like, how big of a missed opportunity, one of these days, whenever I'm standing before God Almighty himself and like having to give an account, like how big of a missed opportunity would it be if God were to be like, hey, you had this platform,
here's the variant you could have
been. You walked away from it, and it's like, oh, all right,
oh, dang,
I guess this is what we got to do. Studied business and finance, and because I went in with a bunch of hours, and so I was able to pull off not quite 2 degrees. I claim 2. I have a management degree, and then I'm like just a little bit shy of finance. But the rule at OBU is dumb, which is you can't graduate with 2 degrees from the same college within the same calendar year.
Okay, I did not know that.
Yeah, so I'm missing a class, which is like an elective.
Oh my gosh.
And so it's like I could have gone and taken racquetball and would have been fine. And so had that conversation, with Dr. Rudebach, and Dr. Rudebach was super poignant in saying like, there's nothing wrong with going back and just confirming that, just like, that fear of, because you go to college, so you don't, your thought is so you don't work in the trades. And basically we
live in a small town, and kind of the motto is like, I can't wait to get out of this town.
Yeah, in high school that was definitely
a lot of people not wanting to grow and bloom where they're planted a lot of times.
Grass is greener mentality.
It's not. It's AstroTurf.
The green grass was actually money leaving your pockets for college.
But him confirming that and saying like, hey, like I understand that like this is what you want to do.
Right.
And he also gave me a warning. He's like, but no, like whenever you tell people that this is the plan, he was like, you're going to get looks, you're going to get people questioning. So you've got to be confident and assured in why you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
And so that built that up. And so Colby and I then, like, very shortly after that, had the same conversation of like, oh, I guess let's do it. We going back?
We're going back.
We're going back? Yeah.
It's going to happen.
Oh, we're going back. Oh, okay. All right. Well, hey, let's call Will.
And I like open the door, like, hey guys.
And so, and so Tucker and I got really kind of, I mean, just excited that we get to, because the enjoyment of working around each other was always true. Like, we grew up in the scrapyard, like cutting.
And by scrapyard, it's you're scrapping units, so you're separating the components out.
So if you've ever seen like a Star Wars movie, where
that's exactly what I compare it to.
Well, that was the only way to make it livable. Was like just convince yourself in your head that you are a scrapper from Star Wars.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, yeah.
I am Luke Skywalker.
Just Cal Kestis hanging out in the shipyard.
Yeah.
Anyways, gosh, I digress.
We just confirmed our ages by the Star Wars reference.
I know. Our conversation that Tucker and I had, enjoyment working with family. We're like, oh man, like cool. Let's anyway. So we got back. Tucker and I did service work basically from the start. Like we weren't big enough for we weren't to a place where there were seats available for us to sit in until to the positions that we are in now just didn't exist. And so we had to grow
3 or 4 years worth of service between
And so I jumped in immediately. So during college career, my senior year, that's what I started doing, was on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Dad basically, growing up, we all like, I had jokes like, people guess my age, where I'm with customers, existing customers, like, oh, how old are you? And they're like, I'm 31, and they're like, wow, like, so how long have you been? I was, well, I've been doing this for 16 years.
Yeah. They did math and go, wait a minute.
Yeah, wait a minute. And so we grew up working with our hands. We grew up doing hard labor, and I think what made it fun was just working together. Like I didn't like scrapping units. I didn't like cutting my hand on aluminum, but I enjoyed it because I got to work with
y'all went off to college and
left Tucker by himself.
And so I had a conversation with Dad like the year y'all went, and I was like, Dad, I need help. And Dad was like, well, Will and Colby did it themselves. I was like, no,
they had friends.
No.
Yeah,
Will had Nate, and then when Nate left, Will had Colby.
Nate's our cousin.
And then whenever Will left, Colby had Brandon and Tucker.
Yeah. And I was like, so now here I am. I need help. And so Dad was gracious enough to get me some help and let me hire one of my buddies. But yeah, it's the enjoyment. It's the commiseration. You become the foxhole buddies.
Yeah.
But that's kind of our path back to the trades. In a roundabout way of just growing up, being in it, and seeing the outworking of it, trying something else, and then coming back home and trying to build this thing up, because there's so much opportunity within the trades. There's the people within the trade space, the community, are the salt of the earth. They'll give you the shirt off their back, and I think it's Mr. Rogers is probably has the best like quote of this, which is, he always said, when things are tough, look for the helpers. Look for the helpers, and you'll find them, but look for the helpers. And the people of the trades industry are by and large the helpers. They might be rough. They might be tumble. They might have some pokey edges about them, but who doesn't? And the people of this industry are the salt of the earth, who are the backbone of why we do what we do. And so that is the heart and desire for the Blue Collar Bros podcast. So as we journey forward in our quest of highlighting things within the industry, our heart and desire of how we're looking to build our company. Again, it's not how we built it, it's how we're building it. We are on a journey together here. And so we want to highlight our team. We're going to have, over the coming weeks, coming months, we'll look to have some industry experts that we've gotten to rub elbows with through the years. We'll look to have our team on, interview them, talk to them about how they ended up here, why they ended up in the trades. And most of those are going to be, I ended up here by accident in the trades, and I thank God that I'm here. But that's going to be the conversations that we look to have as we expand on this Blue Collar Bros experiment. So I thank you for listening. Rate, review, subscribe, and
all of the things.
We appreciate your time today. Guys, let's get out of here.
Yep.
See ya.